Hey everybody, just wanted to shoot a little more video of my brand new tank here. This is my red-clawed crab tank, and it's really difficult to get any good video of these guys so far. I've been trying and trying. They're really skittish. When I move around, they tend to hide. I've been trying to get some good photos and GIFs, and every time I try to do anything, they scurry away. So we're just going to do the best we can and see if we can't get some cool excitement going on. I've seen them climbing on top of each other a few minutes ago, and they were out of the water and working on the moss. So we're just going to shoot a little video and have a little chat and look at the tank, maybe see if they don't come out and get a little more active while we're talking. Yesterday I shot my debut video of this tank, and when I was reviewing it as I was editing it and getting ready to post it, I realized that I'd made a mistake, as I often do in my wording. And I said early on that I'd found several different species of ferns that I put in the tank. And what I meant to say was mosses, not ferns. And I do have, I believe, 4 separate species of moss in the tank. Again, I don't know whether those mosses are going to do well under the low-end brackish conditions I've got them in. We do have one crab sort of creeping out of the corner on the right there. He's been sort of trying to get up on top of the rock, but every time I move, he runs back into the water. So I'm not really sure if we're going to get to see him coming out of the water or not. I think the way these crabs work, I think the males have the big fat red round claws, and the females have the sort of daintier, smaller, less vibrantly colored claws. So I've definitely got at least 2 or 3 males in here. I don't know how many females. I actually have about 10 crabs in here. They're just really not real outgoing, and honestly at this point some of them may even have died underneath those rocks for all I know. Those are some pretty serious cave systems I built back there for them. I expected to have quite a few crabs in here, and I am still working up to it. I was struggling with getting the tank cycled in. It's finally ready and done and cycled, and I don't have to worry about that aspect of it anymore. So now I can sort of add 3 or 4 crabs at a time without really blowing up my bioload and messing up my nitrogen cycle. And eventually I can build it up to where we've got a really active crab population in there. What I want to see is crabs. I don't want to have to sit here and wait patiently to see a crab creep out from time to time. I want to see crabs crawling around the tank and walking up on the moss, and maybe in time they'll get more comfortable, they'll get more used to me. I have noticed that whether I'm shooting video or I'm talking to my wife or I'm on the phone, when I start talking, I'm imagining my booming voice is scaring them away too, because they've gone to ground. I don't see any anywhere at this point. So since they've gone to ground, let's go ahead and have a little closer look at the tank, since we're not in any real fear of disturbing them. I've had a lot of people ask me about the filter and how I got this little waterfall started. This is a Tetra Fauna Repto filter, a decorative filter that's supposed to go in either a turtle tank or a snake habitat or something like that. I don't even remember what I paid for it. I've had it for years. It's just a little pump inside with a little hose that runs up to the top and runs out. This top section lifts off and you can go down, inside, and there's the actual filter material and everything. Very lifelike, and once you've got some growth and stuff going on it, you won't even notice that it's not really a little waterfall made out of rocks there. You can see I've got the Java moss sort of draped over it in places where the water splashes and it's keeping it wet. I'm hoping that will allow the Java moss to attach and start growing right onto the filter itself. This is moss that I've got from the backyard. I have lying on top of a rock that I got from the backyard. If you remember my earlier video where I showed you the tank without anything in it yet, I had a flower pot in the back of the tank that I was trying to grow some stuff out of, and I had a couple of rocks laying over top of it to sort of disguise the flower pot. That right there is the rock that I had lying over top of it. Now I have moss on that to sort of disguise the rock. I also have a piece of woodwork in there that I cut from a larger piece out at Pretty Boy Reservoir, where I like to go hiking and fishing a lot. So that piece of wood was collected a couple of years ago, actually. A lot of effort went into collecting that. All of the rocks in there are rocks that I've either collected recently or rocks that I have lying around from other tanks that are shut down at the moment or whatever. I've always got rocks lying around. The new rocks that I've just recently added are this one here and you can see it's got moss already growing on it. That is directly from Graves Run. I found a few rocks that already had moss growing on them. That's one of them. This rock right here is another one. You can see how that moss is already growing on the rock. That was pulled from the stream side. And this rock here, if you can see this moss that's sort of growing attached to that, that is another one that I pulled from the stream side. This dark green plant here, I'm not sure what this is. I found this out in the woods and I pulled some of it up. It was growing back in a wooded area in a low light condition, and it was not near water, so I don't know how well it's going to do, not only with the rooted end down in water, but it's in low end brackish water as well, so that's going to potentially not survive. It's just I'm experimenting with a lot of this stuff. That's how I find out whether this stuff does well or not. This brighter green stuff here, this is Creeping Jenny. It's been doing well enough. I know it does fine in brackish water, but the crabs have been eating on it really well, and you know, it's getting torn up and broken up. But it's getting on towards springtime. The you know, the stuff like that, the Creeping Jenny or whatever, will be abundant out in the yard, and I can bring in more of that anytime I need to. This right here is another species of moss I got out of the yard. And again, that's just sort of, I peeled a layer up, and that's just kind of lying flat on the rock. You can see the dirt that's come with it. This is another species of moss right here. And then these two little rounded clumps I also got out in the woods. I found them growing near the river I like to hike at. And then this moss here is also from the backyard, and this big patch and this are all the same species of moss. I don't know what the species is, but they're all the same kind of moss, and I really like it. This is probably one of my favorite mosses that we have growing around here in the yard. When you really look closely at it, it almost looks like a whole bunch of tightly packed little miniature pine trees. And as long as the one end is down in the water, the wick effect or capillary action will actually draw the water all the way up through it and keep the whole mass moist. And I have tucked some more of that dark green stuff I found out in the woods underneath the top end of that, so it's sandwiched between a piece of wood and that moss, and it's going to again stay wet, or stay, you know, very, very damp underneath of that moss. So I don't know how well that's going to do, considering the sort of dry wooded conditions I collected it from. The underwater plants in the tank are just little bits of Java moss that I've taken out of my brackish tank, so they were already acclimated to the brackish water to some degree. So that is pretty much about all I can think about as far as what's what and how I got it and where it came from and all that. There's nothing else really sentimental or significant about it. You can sort of look in the end down here, and this will give you a little bit better of an idea of how much open structure I have underneath and how many different layers of caves all sort of intertwine with each other. There's quite a bit of habitat in there. Again, so maybe 15 crabs in this tank probably wouldn't be overcrowding it too much. I don't think so anyway. As I said, I've got 10 in there now, and I may even have 12. I sort of lost count. I've been buying them in small batches from a couple different locations. A few died, I returned a few, I got a few more. It's one of those kind of equations where I've sort of lost track of exactly how many I have in there. It's at least 10, possibly 12. And you can see they can really just vanish and hide very easily. So make sure you're subscribed. That way you won't miss any of the updates I've got on this tank. I hope to be shooting a lot of video of it. I really, really like it. It's a lot of fun. And it's just a tinker around tank. You know, I can make changes to it as the plants die or get eaten by the crabs. I can add to it. I can change plants. Lots of good stuff going on with this tank and coming up in the near future. It's also getting close to springtime. So I did notice for the first time a little tiny fish swimming around out in the river. So the fish might be starting to move again, which means it'll be time to start stocking up my native tank, and that's always going to be a good time. So again, make sure you're subscribed. That way you won't miss any of that coming up. Don't forget, this is my red-clawed mangrove crab tank. Thanks for watching this one. I'll see you real soon on the next one.